I am so sorry I am late. You've taken time out of your Friday to be here, so thank you for being on time. I'm glad this is not a lecture on how to be prompt. So thank you very much, and I'm glad it wasn't raining, the other thing, but I'm parked. I'm not even sure where I'm parked, but I'm parked illegally, so we'll figure that out. But I got here, but again, thank you very much. How many are fashion majors? Just want to have an understanding. Okay. I'd like to make this interactive. Usually I'm in a little bit of a smaller classroom, but you're going to have to yell out your answer. So if you're not a fashion major, what kind of majors are sitting in the house? Marketing. Okay. Everyone else marketing? You just yell out your answer. Good one. Finance major.
Operations.
All right, perfect. I'll tell you a little about myself. That was a very nice intro. Thank you very much. That's all well and good and where I've been, but, I'll tell you a little bit how I got there because, a long time ago, I was sitting in your same shoes. And so a lot of the questions that I, get from students is like, what should I study and what should I major and what do I focus on and, what kind of jobs and internships, and there's a lot of stress probably on yourself, from your classmates, from your parents who are paying tuition. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and that's not on the piece of paper. So I've always been in retail. I did telemarketing. I worked in an ice cream store. I spent my summers not really wanting to work hard, truth be told. One summer I came home, we went on vacation, I was getting a tooth out, and my mom was like, hey, perhaps you need to get a job. There's a job at the mall. I was like, the mall? I love the mall. Like, do I get paid to be at the mall? I was one of those 1980s kind of mall rats, if you've ever seen any of those movies, always hanging out. Before an iPhone, it was basically the mall. Like, that's where you met people, and that's where you shopped, and that's where you, played video games and did all kinds of things like that. She's like, how about you actually go and work at the mall? So I started in a department store and was actually so I was in a small town in Illinois. There was a department store and it was working in missy, dressy clothing. I dressed like you guys. I was like, go and sell suits and dresses to women, and so I'll just go and talk to people. So I went and talked to people and found it kind of interesting to be able to figure out what their needs are and how can I sell more, and it was kind of fun, but the interesting thing is I got to work over holiday and Christmas, and that was actually kind of hard. It was busy, and you sat at the register. The next summer came along and didn't have a job. I said, all right, I'll go back to the department store. The manager at the time said, I want you to think about the business. Here's the planogram, if you will, anyone who's worked in retail. Think about your business. You get to assort the floor. What's working, what's not working? I said, oh, well, this is kind of different. I enjoy this. Had a finance degree, coming out, looking at where I wanted to work. My parents were like, Wall Street's really nice, perhaps a job in insurance. And I started interviewing with retailers. And what I found is I really had a passion for the industry. And I thought, I don't know what I can do. I've just been on the sales floor. Truth be told, came out and started working in a department store and was a store manager here in Columbus. About a year in, there was a tour. And they said, your area doesn't look like the other stores that we've been visiting. And I said, well, of course, because why would I follow that piece of paper? I've been looking at the numbers, and I have the best business, right? And they were like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. At that point, my manager said, I don't think this is the job for you. That began my career trajectory in a totally different way, and I'm very thankful for that kind of moment, quite frankly. I ended up going to work for L Brands, started my career in doing merchandise planning and forecasting, but when I came out of working in the stores, I didn't know what jobs really existed, quite frankly, in the world. So what I'm gonna do is kind of talk about taking the fashion out of fashion retail. So a lot of retail, I wanna be a buyer, I wanna be a designer, it's so cool, all these great things. That's really not the crux of what retail is anymore. We're going to talk a little bit about how retail is changing. I'm sure you talk a lot about in your classes. Being a finance major, I didn't take any of the classes that probably most of you did. You probably have a lot more kind of academic knowledge than I do. I'm going to tell you all the stuff that probably they're not telling you. Real world examples of the 30 plus years that I've been in the industry. Again, I'll probably ask some questions and make this interactive, but we're going to go through and talk about retail in a little bit of a different way. Some of it's going to talk about Accel, and some of it's just going to be a lot of other different topics. So hopefully you'll be able to glean a little bit more about retail. All we hear is about retail is dying. Stores are dying, malls are closing, everyone's going bankrupt. I really don't think that retail is dying, right? Probably everyone has shopped in the past week, 2 weeks, right? Bought something. Might have been on Amazon. You may have gone to a store. I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. My kids love to go to the store. They love to actually touch and feel the merchandise. So it's interesting when they talk about no one's going to the store and how do people shop or shopping less. They're just shopping differently. So I thought this was funny that people are praying for a zombie apocalypse in retail. It's not as bad as what you hear. It's just evolving, and like many industries that change, it seems like a big departure and people get nervous. But we're going to talk a little bit about what that might mean for you and what are things that you can do to be a part of the change. Technology. So a little bit about Accel, since it's on the front page. So our mission is to do contract assembly for the nation's leading corporations. We partner with our clients in assembling products and flawlessly, profitably to maximize consumer satisfaction. One of my jobs is to do marketing. We have a nice person who was able to design that. So what do we really do? So a product is only half sold without great packaging. People love to buy things, but a lot of it has to do with how it's displayed, how it's packaged. So while a lot of focus in retail is what are those things and how are they made, how are they really packaged and how do they get to you? So if you think about mixed assortment looking in that picture, manufacturers don't want to deal with putting things together that make sense to the customer, or that Costco or Kellog or L Brands really wants to have it displayed and make it more appealing to customers. That's where we come in. So from the manufacturer, we take product and we put it together. We put it together in a way that makes it more appealing. Gift baskets. Anyone go to the store around holiday and are like, oh my gosh, I need to buy my mom something, my grandma something, has all the products and the lotions and things like that. We put it together. So we get all that product in, we get the basket, we put the plastic around it, we tie the bow. Go to Costco and you want to buy the assortment of cereal. You want Frosted Flakes and you want Fruit Loops and you want Rice Krispies. We put that together. We get all that product in and put it in a box. Things that people kind of don't think about. And I do a lot of tours with different people and they say, well, that food's coming here? Like, how long? One day. We get 15 trailers a day. We send 15 out. So the product comes in, we make it, we push it back out. Just part of the supply chain. I don't know how many are maybe supply chain majors who have spent a lot of time in supply chain, but how the product moves all the way from conception all the way to the store is a lot of the work within the retail value chain. Accel is located in New Albany, Ohio, for those of you who are familiar with Columbus. We are in what's called Beauty Park. So in 2011, Les Wexner, who is the CEO and founder of L Brands, had a vision and said, we're really struggling on speed to market. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. How do I get the product that people want to buy or buying now faster? So if you've studied Zara, Zara has a 4-week turnaround. They can read the numbers, look at what customers are buying, and have either the same product or an extension of that product into store. Speed to market. We can't wait 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Working with overseas vendors, you're working on things that have to be on a boat, timing. It was very challenging for L Brands. They took that probably 6-week to 3-month turnaround to 16 days by having this beauty campus. So there's 18 different companies. Accel was the anchor of it. There's anything from bottle caps to bottles to fillers to assembly. So we're called the Silicon Valley of health and beauty manufacturing. We're way out in a field. The interesting thing is there used to be nothing out there. We now have Google out there, Facebook out there, but we have a big group of partners that throughout the whole supply chain can turn around product on a dime and make product more relevant for the customer faster. So services out there, assembling, blending, filling, bottles, candles, fixtures, and contract packaging. So what is assembly packaging? So it's about speed to market execution. So what we want to do is be the people who be able to package and get things to the customer as fast as possible. Thinking outside the box. I love this about retail. What my friends think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what society looks like. Used to be just a runway. That was fashion, right? What customers think I do, I clean out the fitting rooms or I put things back. What I think I do. Retail's hard. Anyone who's worked in a retail store or a restaurant, it's hard work. And people aren't nice. Some, not all, some. This is what I really do. Put things back together. Make a great customer experience. But there's a lot of steps before it gets to the store. This week we hosted 25 store managers from Bath & Body Works. They were the top store managers in the fleet for North America. And it was amazing to hear them talk about what their struggles were and then go out and see all the assembly and the packaging and how the product comes together. And they were like, I never realized all the steps before it got to us and it was sitting on a fixture. So here's retail's old model, very linear model. There was product prototyping. Someone has a vision. You have a designer. You have somebody who's looking at it and say, this is the product we need. Then we go and source it. We figure out, what is the product really going to look like? Where am I going to have it manufactured? Someone's got to figure out where it goes. It comes into a distribution center. Then there's store operations. They put it out on the floor. We put some signs. We sell it. And then it all starts back again. It was all very linear. I started my career in inventory management and distribution with L Brands. This is what it looks like today. It's not linear. There's a lot of different ways that people can shop. There's a lot of different ways that product can be fulfilled, a lot of different places that it's coming from. This is what we're going to talk about, and this is how retail really looks in today's marketplace, which, as you can see, there's so much going on, but the exciting thing is there's so much going on. But there's a lot of things that have to change in people's mindset, and retailers who have adopted to this are successful. Those who have struggled with it are not successful. One of the biggest things that I like to talk about, especially when I'm in the Fisher School, is about data. So there's a user, there's data and technology. So retailers are really complex organizations that are dealing with all their own systems, all their partner systems, all of the people who manufacture their product, everything that goes around. All those systems have data, and all of it has to come together. And again, think about that last picture. All of it has to move flawlessly, and it's all real time. There's so much data that's being generated. I mean, every time you're searching on your phone, there's generating data that someone somewhere is reading. Even in your searches, Amazon is watching. They have thousands of data scientists that just look and see, what are you searching for? What can't you find? What is the next opportunity of product to make just based on your searches? And where you're searching makes a big difference. It's amazing how much data comes from your phone, whether you opt in or not. Detail on that on a different day. Combining data is not always a straightforward process. Standardization. So there's all this data coming in on that picture, and so many companies are saying, like, how do I get a hold of it all? It's very difficult. All I want to do is figure out, what is the customer buying? How do I make more of it? How do I sell more of what she or he wants? Whatever that retailer may be. But it's very difficult to take all that information. As you can see, the manufacturing, the stores, transportation, the ringing of the register. How do we read it all? There's so much information. What I will tell you is, from a retail perspective, whatever your major is, whatever your passion is, no matter how creative it is, you have to know numbers. Not saying you have to be an accountant, not saying that you're gonna love that finance class. It's all about the numbers. There's not one merchant and one designer that I ever worked with. I worked at Tween Brand, Limited 2, Justice, Express, Limited Stores, department store. They now have to know their numbers. How many did you sell? What color did you sell? What was your best one? How much are you buying to get back? What's your next best item? You have to know your numbers. What are you doing about your business? You could be the best at knowing color, trend, anything like that, but it all relates to really, what are the numbers? Right place, right time of the product. So the building blocks of omni-retail used to be a very simple life 10, 20 years ago. There was one way to buy. You had to go to the store, pick something up. Now it's really all about the customer. It's really a pull system. It was a push. It used to be, hey, we're going to put product on in the floor. We're going to open those doors, and those people are going to be coming in, and they're going to buy what we have told them they need to buy. I worked at Express for 10 years. They were the fashion leader. Whatever they put, people would buy, because I want to look like that. I want to look like the mannequin. I want to look like what's in the marketing, the model with the blowing hair. It's a little different now. You have so many choices. You've grown up with so many choices. You have computers, you have iPads, you have phones, being able to see. And it's about individuality. You don't want to look like everyone else. 20 years ago, there was a big rounder of sweaters, and everyone had to have that sweater, and it was so cool to pass your friend in high school and be wearing the same thing. No one wants to do that anymore. It's all about customization, but really, the customer comes first. But you need to be data-driven. What do we know about the customer? But there's a lot you don't know. So only 30% of customers actually buy something, if you're thinking about when you're shopping at the mall or online. So what's the other 70%? Why did you leave? Didn't like the items, something wasn't in your size, color, didn't have your taste preference, right? I was talking the other day about restaurants. Restaurants have it easy. You don't walk into Burger King and are like, I'm just browsing, never mind. You go in and buy something. So there's always a conversion. In retail, it's very different. You're on your phone, you're looking, you're going through apps, you're on Instagram, you're clicking through. It's a lot of browsing. But what does that data say? How do we know what we should be offering for people who didn't buy? We want to be experiential. Every store you walk in, is it really resonating with you? What's exciting? What are stores that you love to go in? Is it about the hunt? Do you like to have big racks? Do you like to have things all over the place? Do you like it orderly? People are different, but you want it to be an experience and you want it to relate to you. That's what you get excited. Those are the kind of places that you want to go back. And probably good customer service and not waiting in line. I get very frustrated about organizations that have an amazing selling team and they'll walk you through everything and they're great, and then they're like, go stand over there with the 30 other people and go check out. That's really not fun. How do you be able to check out from your phone? Apple has really been the leader in that. Technology, it's really how we buy. Do you want to go stand in line? Maybe you want to just browse and buy from your phone. Being able to adopt and cater to that, nothing's more frustrating. When I worked at the consulting company, Abercrombie & Fitch was one of my clients. Love Abercrombie. My son has worked in the home office. But you go into their stores, and by the time you get about halfway through, you have no signal. And I always say to them, I want to be on my phone. I want to maybe send pictures to people because I take pictures for my son and say, hey, do you want this? Or maybe you want to look at something. What's online? Maybe there's a different color. Maybe you can find your size online. You can't do it if you don't have a signal in your store. It's very frustrating, and it's a path to not purchasing. So what are the keys to retail? This is always the fun picture of what retail looked like a sketching, and there's this apparel, and it's women's fashion. There's a lot more to it. There's 3 keys really to retail. I don't know what you learned in your classes. I don't want this to, sound different than anything that you've heard, but what I'm finding in the marketplace, I've been on both sides. I've been a consultant, I've worked in retail, and now I'm a partner / vendor to retail. It's all about speed. First one to the table wins. Even if you have a great idea, someone's going to have it before you. Innovative and data-driven. You have to know the data. But you also have to also be innovative. If you're not changing, you're going to be dying. Why is it important? One thing we love about Columbus, so this is kind of a shameless plug about Columbus, is the metropolitan area. So you all came to Ohio State. I don't know how far you came to be a student here and what you know about Columbus, but you can reach 50% of the US population within a 10-hour drive, 1-hour flight. We're centrally located. There's a tremendous amount of retail here. lots of different retail. Again, everyone is like, oh, L Brands or fashion retail or express. DSW is here. Lots of different retail. Rodan and Fields is a retailer. They do skincare product. What's nice about Columbus is it's a large enough city, but the proximity and being able to cater to customers very quickly. It's always been an advantage of all the retailers here in Columbus. And as I talked about, having a 16-day turnaround of your product is so important. But for any retailer, how you get your product to the store quickly, where it's made, and how fast you can react to how customers are buying is so critical. If I don't sell it to you and you go somewhere else, there's a good chance you're going to that other place next time you want something. It's hard to get you back. So retailers have to struggle with that. Innovation and sustainability. Sustainability is so important, and I think with your age, not to characterize, but in a positive way, it's so much more important. You don't want the extra packaging. You don't want bags. You just want it to be simple. You want product to come to you and be able to not be throwing 2 and 3 things away. It's so important, especially the plastics. You want to make sure that there's a product that is in reusable packaging and are companies using stuff that's been recycled. It's so important, and again, it's not been necessarily a focus, but it's now very important to the marketing and the production of product and how to get to your customers. So for Accel, it's really important for us to reduce the carbon footprint, but for all of our clients who say that, again, thinking about the store managers that came in from Bath & Body Works, they said, oh, there's this plastic, we get these things all packed in, like it's so much work and we're just throwing it away and it's such a waste. Well, the problem is without it, they're glass, they're things that will break. And so we're looking at sustainable ways to transport product. Lush is a big player in the marketplace. Have you ever bought anything from Lush? What do you know about their packing peanuts? That's right, they're edible. They'll even tell you that, but they do dissolve in water. So those are the kind of things that retailers are interested in, and all of suppliers within the supply chain have to really think about. So as you think about careers, I mentored a student out of OSU a couple years ago. She now works for Ralph Lauren. All she wanted to do was work for companies that had a sustainable kind of message around it. You know, how did they use product? How do they make product? And that's so important. And being on the forefront of that is even more important, because I don't think enough retailers are thinking that way, but it's important to customers. So it's definitely something to kind of study and think about if you're not. Supply chain management. So again, thinking about retail, what are different facets of retail? You know, it's about making something, getting it to where you're going to sell, and then getting more of it. And that's really the supply chain. So it's warehouse, inventory management, transportation, reverse logistics, fulfillment. E-fulfillment's a huge one. There's an Amazon fulfillment center about every corner at this point. But thinking about how much logistics and movement of product is necessary in today's retail environment. It's less about the stores, but there's a tremendous amount of careers, whether it be, you know, in engineering or transportation or just thinking about inventory management. So if you talk about finance and numbers, how to maximize that piece of it with minimizing cost. All those things are pass-through costs on your product. So all companies want to do is minimize all of those pieces. Retail, you always kind of think about fashion, but there's really a lot of different retail industries. Chemicals, paints, personal care, plastics, pharmaceuticals. Huge business in pharmaceuticals. Food and beverage, automotive, electronics, safety equipment. All those companies used to be called CPG. Are you familiar with that term? Customer products? CPG companies are now selling directly to customers. So it used to be like, well, I'm Kellogg's and I make Pop-Tarts and I go sell them at Walmart. You know, my job is done. Once I have put them into the supply chain, I don't sell them anymore. It's now sold on Amazon. So they have to think about what's their packaging? How are they selling on Amazon? How are they selling direct to customers? And a lot of CPG have even figured out, I want to bypass Amazon. Why should I give Amazon a cut? Amazon's really expensive to work with. They charge for putting their stuff up and warehousing and a piece of your sales, and they do a tremendous job, but they take a lot of money. So there's I can't think of the company's name, up in north of Columbus that makes all the ortho and the green lawn care stuff. They're like, we just might as well bypass. They have 80% of the marketplace, and they want to sell direct to consumer. But it creates a new kind of interesting dynamic for a CPG company who's traditionally the manufacturer of the product for someone else to sell, to figure out how they're going to sell it. But all of that is now retail. So I don't want you to think of retail in its traditional sense. There's lots of different companies. Anything that is made is really a retail company and can use your expertise within their business. Community involvement. So it's so important that give back. This is a little bit of a shameless plug for Accel, but I think it's important for all companies, no matter where in the supply chain, or if you work, if you're interested outside of something in retail and fashion, the community involvement. Because those people that you're supporting are your employees, they're your customers, and we just have a civic duty to give back to the community. Diversity and inclusion. Our company specifically has 22 different languages spoken in 18 different cultures. So the grim reality is, and I think you guys are probably a little more in tune, that the white female, young white female, or white male is not what's in the marketing. That's not a representation of our society. We come from different backgrounds, we're different shapes, we're different colors, we're different ages, and we have to understand the cultural diversity within the customer base that retailers are selling to. So those are the people that are working in organizations and they're buy things. So your marketing, your messaging, your product, all has to be diverse. And the great thing is about diversity is having different people at the table with different backgrounds think about things a little bit differently. They're able to bring product to fruition a little bit differently. I used to work for L Brands, Victoria's Secret, a lot in the marketplace, if you read the articles, has been kind of blasted for not changing what they look like. The Victoria's Secret model is what it was 30 years ago. This thin, very voluptuous, young, that's not really their customer, truth be told, and that's not really kind of what society looks like. And they've got a lot of competitors who are taking business away from them because they're kind of, the media's words, not mine, a little tone deaf about what we all look like and what we want to buy. So the Aeries of the world and Third Love and Fenty, who are really bringing diversity within their product and assortment, are having much more success. So we really have to think about that. Keep talking about packaging. So again, we talk a lot about different products. So product and retail can be baby food and how it's assorted in jars and how it's packaged to make sure that you can see the assortment, see the label. It has a mix of different product. This is probably our bread and butter. Our company's 24 years old. This is where we started. Limited Brands used to have 32 assembly centers over in China, and they would put this product in something like this and then ship it back. Well, by the time it came across an ocean liner and got to the warehouse in Columbus, if it was wrong, you had nothing you could do. Like, it's yours now. You either had to rework it or you were stuck with it. Consistency is so important. You don't want to go into stores or have two different ones sitting on a shelf that look different. And so the founders of our organization said, there's got to be a better way. And 24 years later, 31 of those, 31 assembly centers of the 32 that L Brands used to use, they don't use anymore. We took the lion's share of that business. But even putting cards in a box, creating the product, Cardinal Health. People are familiar with Cardinal Health. They do a lot of over-the-counter product for pharmacies. You want to talk about, well, I don't want to be in healthcare. Healthcare is retail. And that's a big one because everyone needs healthcare and healthcare related products. We all don't need a new t-shirt all the time. So again, the intersection of what retail and the industries it serves, very interesting. Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers is a retailer. So it used to be like, well, they were this company who I could buy product from and they'd help me with a diet. They actually now have product that they go out and sells on Amazon. They do gift with purchases. We do a lot of packaging. It's a retailer that they have clients that they want to serve and be a wellness company for. Talked a little bit about Spa Day. So our company recognized that when there was a big explosion of bath product, it was hand assembly and hand form. So if you've ever bought anything from Lush, you can see kind of the nuances and variances between them because they're all handmade, they're not machine made. Because we had a large talent pool of people who are used to hand assembly and different production, and one of our co-founders had a business dealings and history kind of in the restaurant industry, you have to be evolve and changing because everyone says, why would a packaging company, you guys put things in a box and then ship it out? Why would you make bath product? We have to evolve, we have to grow, we have to differentiate ourselves, and this was a product that we could do an extension for and serve the marketplace. So we've been doing this since 2016. We've made over 9 million units. We do private label and wholesale, so we love the bath product industry, but it opens up new doors because people then are saying, well, do you do fill? And do you do fill of hair shampoo? Do you do fill of pills for over-the-counter? Everything kind of takes the next step because if we can fill one thing in a bottle, then we can fill a different product. Again, it's all retail, but we want to make sure that we're doing complementary businesses and thinking outside the box and thinking more than it's just how do I sell something or how do I package something. It's so important, again, to going back to one of my other slides, being innovative and thinking about the next and not just thinking about the now. Again, retailers who have struggled, think about very shorter term business versus what's the longer term strategy and how is the customer and the marketplace evolving. It takes a lot to make a bath bomb. So I'm not going to go through this, but this is all the machinery that's required for one of those. You have color matching. So you say, I want to work in retail. You want to work and do color. You want to do fragrances. Lots of different opportunities to look at product. We work with companies out in the beauty park that fill perfume, fill the lotion bottles, do all the candles. There's chemistry behind that. There's color matching, fragrance matching, lots of different businesses that help support retail. That's very interesting. And we have engineers. Someone's got to build all this machinery and make sure it works. We serve the largest retail clients. But what's interesting about this is there's a lot of big retail clients, a lot of different companies. And if you look at all of them, they really serve kind of different markets, different people. You can maybe think about a product that, what do I think about Kroger might be different than what I think about Target. They both sell food. They both sell shampoo, CVS, Amazon. What's the differentiators? One of the things that we work a lot with our clients on is you can get the same product at almost all those retailers, but what's different about it? How they're packaged, maybe the size of the product, how the outside packaging. All of that makes a difference, and they want you to come back to their store and be able to buy the product. Again, maybe the same product, but it's those little details that make all the difference. Custom packaging and design. So again, this is, you think about people who want to go into production or sourcing. There's lots of different components. Sourcing that box, sourcing the shred, sourcing the labels, sourcing the lids, making the lids. All of that is within the retail value chain for Bath & Body Works, for L'Oreal, for lots of different companies. Even the bags. How do you make a better bag? How do you make a biodegradable bag? That didn't come out right. You can find me on LinkedIn. We have an Instagram page. You can look at our website. We have Twitter. Please connect with me. Want to do a time check? What questions? I've left 15 minutes for questions, and I started late, so I apologize, but I'd like to take questions.
So the boxes full of bath products, how much of that is a designer deciding what goes in there, and how much is based on the data, based on who's buying what?
Yeah, nope, that's a great question. So the question was, what is design driven and what is data driven about product design? Depends. So we have, all of it is based on data, but an L Brands of the world has a production or a team that designs and looks at trends. I get emails and says, hey, what do you think about coconut for spring of 2020? Or hey, we're looking at a certain kind of oil. What are they seeing in the marketplace? A lot of research. So some of it is, I can't have data on things I haven't had on my floor, right? Or are they building out something like how much they can build out men's? Or, Bath & Body Works has been a lot of gender. We have men's and we have essentially women's. A lot of retailers have figured out it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? It's more kind of gender neutral or dual gender, right? The bath bombs don't have to be pink. I got 2 kids that play sports and they take Epsom salt baths. They want a white bath bomb. They think it's the greatest thing. So there's data driven that helps create new product. But again, you end up with a hole where they haven't had something. So you have to read the marketplace, and there's a lot of trend reports. There's a lot of companies that don't have that deep of knowledge of product development people. So L Brands, will decide on a color and a theme, and they'll have in the stars, and they want a certain Pantone yellow. That's great. You go to a Big Lots, you go to a Target, and they'll just say, give me it as it is. I'll make the decision as the merchant if I want to have that on the line. And the question, I sat down in front of Target about 2 weeks ago, they said, we got 2,000 products. Why do I want yours? Like in 90 seconds, basically, tell me the features and benefits that's going to take the shelf space of something else. That's how they were making their decisions. Now, they probably had data to know, right, what product is working for them. They wanted a multicultural product. So Target, if you're on their websites, it's very important to them to have more of a multicultural product assortment, if you will. And so we went through and said, this has shea butter and this particular coconut oil, and here's the benefits to the skin. And we had to know that in the product, be able to articulate it, and this is how we market the product. So it's a combination. Good question, thank you. Other questions? It's a quiet group, yes?
From a fashion perspective, as technology improves and the push for sustainability improves, how do you see possible 3D printing and biodegradable clothing becoming somewhat of an obstacle for all of these companies that aren't? How do you see 3D printing working its way into the future?
Yep. That's a great question. So it was around 3D printing, how we see that coming into the marketplace. So we have a CAD machine in our office. We have a 3D printer. We're actually able to do molds 3D printed for when we're doing product kind of sampling for design teams. There are companies like a DSW who's 3D printing shoes. They did a test, so there are companies. I think it's in its infancy. I think it's great for doing like pre-production samples, being able to sample, doing things very quickly, commercialization, and being able to actually produce something that someone's going to walk into a store and have a 3D object made. I don't think companies aren't quite there yet. The technology exists, and there's lots of, I think, shoe companies I think are on the forefront, but a lot of it's, again, hey, we'll make this for you, but it's not the final one. We'll make the final one kind of the way. It becomes a standardization if you're willing as a customer to have that variability. Some people don't. in terms of like, I want it to be a perfect product versus like, hey, it's going to be, roughly right and a little bit unique. But from a technology standpoint, it's definitely out there, but not at a mass market, if you will. It's hard if you think about going back to, that kind of, they work on volume and getting people and through the register, and there's a lot of technology of getting people to transact outside of a line. But again, those companies are working on high volume, and 3D printing at this point doesn't lend itself to that, quite frankly. So, good question. Other question? Yes.
Are you familiar with Puma's clever little bag?
No.
Packaging? There was like an innovative shoebox that they came out with that was like really green a few years ago. I was just wondering like what current products or companies you guys are looking at that are really innovating this packaging.
Yeah, so you talked about Puma, right?
Yeah.
Puma and packaging. A lot of what we talk about is trying to get rid of the packaging altogether, right? So if you think about shoes and they come in a box, do you really need to have the box? I think I touched on earlier, Lush transports its product in no kind of packaging. They have a lot of breakage. We wrap ours so it doesn't break as much. It's a choice, but there is packaging around like our bath bombs. In terms of innovative companies, I talked about it when I was mentioning the student I mentored. You have to go out to the coast. So you have to go to like a North Face or REI or those kind of companies who have a client base who's pushing for it and then is pushing companies back to be more green, if you will. Most of the companies there's not a lot of huge companies that probably are that innovative. It's usually the smaller ones and then are kind of creating the tipping point for everyone else. I know Gap has a big push on denim that is reused fabric. Denim is really hard to not only make from a cotton perspective, but all the finishes on cotton is really bad for the environment, like the chemicals and the washing, and they put stones and things like that. I don't know how many people are familiar. So denim is one that's really trying to change how it's made and being more sustainable. J. Crew, I don't know if it's out in the marketplace or not, but they have jeans that they're working with suppliers on that you could bury it and it would be completely disposed. It'd be gone in a year. So even the rivets, because I was like, no, I was talking to her, so I'm like, come on, like the zipper and the rivets, like really, could it really be, or is it just like most of it? He's like, all of it would be biodegradable. So it's kind of a push either from customers or there are some kind of big wholesale manufacturers that probably the label, they don't have their own label, but they're making for other customers that are like mall-based retailers that are doing green kind of projects. It's not a great answer. I don't have a super answer, but the interesting thing is it's product and it's packaging. To your point, there's a lot of, and a lot of states are passing regulations against plastic bags and against straws and things like that. I mean, we have to get there. There's no question about it. Thanks for asking. Any other questions? Anyone who doesn't want to raise their hand and shout out a question, because you might be like, this is only for my interest, please feel free to come up and talk to me. I have business cards. We can connect. If you have projects for class, happy to chat, but really appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much.